Hello, 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 MCR family. Another daily edition of the show live on YouTube. Obviously, podcast form, iTunes, Spotify, radio, etc. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Apologies about no intro music, no sound bites today. Apologies about that. I updated my computer, and the soundboard app we use for the show is no longer compatible. So that's $50 down the drain. Shout out to you, Apple. But digressing, we're going to be here breaking down, reviewing all of the weekend's actions. Gary Russell Jr. versus King Tug on Showtime, and plus Kell Brook versus Mark DeLuca on DAZN and Sky Sports. We're breaking down, reviewing all of that action right now on today's show. So hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. And let's go out to my co-host on tonight's show, our late show today, because this was very spur of the moment. I was with my kid, and I was like, you know what? I'm kind of bored right now. My kid's playing video games. Like, I'll just want to do a show. I want to talk about some boxing. I know Gary wants to talk about some boxing. So let's go out to Gary in Dallas. Gary, what's up, man? How are you doing? You're muted.
Okay. I'm good. I was really satisfied with yesterday's boxing. Both cards I thought were pretty good, and I wasn't expecting much from them. And I know a lot of people are gonna hate on the Rigo fight, but I thought it was like the old professor, like taking. Well, I would call Solis young, but it's not exactly young. But like, I thought that was like a brilliant performance for all that he has left in the tank. And then Kell Brook looked sharp against a bum. I mean, I don't want to call Mark DeLuca a bum, but
That's harsh, Gary.
Bazooka DeLuca. Looks spectacular. There's a lot to get into. I was, as a boxing fan, I was quite happy with the product I was given yesterday. It exceeded expectations, I would say.
Do you want to start with the marquee card, the Showtime card, or do you want to start with, chronologically speaking, of the day and start with the Kell Brook card? Where do you want to start, Gary? I did a 30-minute post-fight show last night at like midnight, man. So you can pick. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, you want to start with you want to go in chronological order and start with the UK card?
Sure, let's do that. Kell Brook obviously defeating, as Gary called him, quote, a bum. That's not my words. Mark DeLuca. Clearly an overmatched opponent. Like, there was no business. There's no reason for Mark DeLuca to be in there other than to give a Kell Brook coming off a 14-month layoff a easy win. And even then, would you classify Kell Brook's win against Mark DeLuca as an easy win? Did he look like he was back? You know, the big talking point, even from the broadcast, the Sky Sports broadcast, was how good does Kell Brook look in this fight? If he looks really good, then we say that he's back. Did he look really good getting that 7th round TKO finish, or KO finish, I should say?
So I want to, I thought he looked good. This is not Michael Zavara. This is somebody far worse than that, right? Look, you have to consider the opposition. Again, I'm not here to crap on Mark DeLuca. When you go to a club show and you say, oh, that guy looked pretty good, that's Mark DeLuca. Mark DeLuca has a cool backstory. He's a cool guy. So they built him up to have a record of, and he didn't even have an undefeated record because he lost to somebody along the way and then beat him again. Like, whoever he beat in his last fight, he lost. And it's no one of note. And you know, what is it? What's the name of that promotional company in Boston with all the Irish fighters? Murphy's Boxing.
Mm-hmm.
They want to build him up, and they need some names. And like, again, DeLuca's a good guy. He's got a cool story. You know, he's supposed to have power. I've never seen it. Anyway, we've seen him on TV a few times, but he's not good. And Kell Brook did what he was supposed to do. Like, I thought Kell Brook looked pretty sharp. But again, you got to consider the level of competition. He's in there with a sparring partner. He's in there with a tomato can. Again, no disrespect to Mark DeLuca, but Mark DeLuca's not a top 50 guy. It's kind of like, yeah.
Talk your shit, Gary.
He put someone at the level of, what's the name of that guy that Tyson Fury just fought, the big German, Otto Wallin. Mm-hmm. They're probably pretty comparable, Wallin and Mark DeLuca. Kell Brook did what he was supposed to do. Yeah, it took him a while, but DeLuca was a tough guy. You know, DeLuca was never in the fight. He was just not getting knocked out. Where it's kind of like what I expect from Wallin. Maybe Wallin might not get blown out in 2 rounds, but he should never have been in that fight with Tyson Fury, and he was, which is shocking, right? I mean, Kell Brook did what he was supposed to do. I thought he looked sharp, but obviously you're going to look sharp against a non-moving stationary target who can't fight back.
I mean, obviously, Gary, I think a lot of people are coming away thinking that Kell Brook looked, quote, sharp in this fight. I thought he took some shots he probably shouldn't have against the competition that he was facing. I thought he took a lot of right hands when, again, it's just Mark DeLuca, but that's probably nitpicking. Obviously, he is wanting a title run at 154. The titles, the champions right now are Jason Rosario, probably going to be Brian Castano coming up against Patrick Teixeira. I mean, who do you want him to face?
I don't think. Look, he hasn't fought much since the Spence fight, right? He's fought Safar as the best opponent.
He fought Sergey Rabchenko, Michael Safara, and now obviously, what's his name? Mark DeLuca. I just forgot about his name.
Him and Eddie said that they want to bring him back in 10 to 12 weeks. So this was strictly a tune-up. This was just shake the rust off. And then we're going to give you a real fight 10 to 12 weeks from now. I don't want that fight to be a world title fight. He ain't ready for that yet. I would say give him one of the European level guys. Scott Fitzgerald. How's that? That's who I'd like to see him fight next. Take care of business with him, and then we could talk about putting you in with one of the killers in the division, right? One of the top names. But not until then. Beat a European level guy first. Dispose of him like you're supposed to, and then let's go from there. Because you can't say, let's put him in the ring with Jason Rosario or Castano or I was going to say Jared Hurd, but let's scratch that for the time being. You can't even say put him in the ring with J-Rock right now. And that wouldn't even be for a title. Like, let him be the European level guy, look good, dispose of a guy that you should dispose of, and then we'll talk about your future. But take care of business first.
Let's move on. Terry Harper, unless you have anything else to say about Kell Brook.
I want to see Brook fight next. Who, if you were matchmaking him?
I agree with your sentiment that needs to be a UK level guy. Ted Cheeseman, Scott Fitzgerald, Anthony Fowler, that level of opponent. I mean, Liam Smith has been calling him out for some time. I wouldn't mind that level of fighter too. Liam Smith, even though he's a perennial top 15 sort of opponent, he has been slipping in his age. He's clearly getting a little bit older. And I think style-wise, you can see Kell Brook outboxing Liam Smith. So I'm okay with that level of fighter. And like you said, it would make sense if he's trying to fight a Rosario or a Teixeira or Castano winner. You want to face someone that's a little bit of an intermediate before that, because I think Kell Brook is one of those people that he kind of needs a tune-up from a definitional perspective. Like, he needs to get tuned up before big fights because the rust is clearly a factor. It took him till the 7th round to really get this guy out of here when he could have, I think if he was sharp, not getting any rust off, he could have got this guy out of here within 4 rounds, in my opinion.
Well, let me ask you this. You would say he looked better than Chocolatito did in his return bout, right?
Yeah, yes. I'm trying to remember who Chocolatito fought.
I fought his cab driver, bro. It was no one.
It was an odd name too. Yeah. Just from a weight perspective, I mean, obviously, Chocolatito went up in weight for that fight, for his comeback fight. He looks a little bit chubby, in my opinion. Kell Brook went up in weight, but he's always solid. He's always built like a tank, so that wasn't too shocking. But I will say this: his speed as an athlete doesn't seem to be the same anymore. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a rust factor. I don't know if that was the 14-month layoff, whatever it may be. But you go and watch him on his come up, watch him against Sean Porter, watch him against even Triple G. The speed of Kell Brook versus the fights against Rabchenko, Safara, and now with Mark DeLuca is noticeably different. I don't know why, but that's clearly a symptom of something. Moving on, though, unless you have anything else to say, Terry Harper defeating Ava Wahlstrom in a really fun back-and-forth fight, knocking her down in the 7th round. Terry Harper, in my opinion, showed us a lot in this fight. I mean, we both picked Ava Wahlstrom, I think, purely off experience. We picked her, basing her off of her long tenure in the sport, so to speak. And Terry Harper came in and kind of outclassed her. She was by far the better athlete. I mean, I said this in the post-fight show last night. Her speed combined with like her crisp shots, like her shots were so clean and they had a little bit of snap to it that I was really impressed by Terry Harper. I think what a lot of people think about Michaela Mayer, Terry Harper is, in terms of that really fundamental boxer, but good athlete, good pop, overall really good fighter. You know, the Mike Garcia, in women's boxing, so to speak. Terry Harper could be that, where she is nearly flawless in everything.
She can still be hit. I was thinking, and this is going to be a weird comparison, but I like this is what I thought watching it was like a Sorung Vasai, right? Like an offensive powerhouse who's still a pretty good boxer. Like she's gonna take people out and break them down. She's like
I don't see. I see more of like an Estrada if I'm making a comparison to that weight class. She's far more fundamental than a Rungvisai, who's unorthodox. He's switching stances a lot. He's sort of like, to use a lack of a better term, he's falling into angles and shots due to his waist movement. Harper is far more upright, far more fundamental in her stance and her approach, I would say. Am I wrong in that?
No, she's fundamentally more sound than Rungvisai. I was just seeing as the physical force that she is, and then she's still a pretty good. She's a better pure boxer, right? Than Rungvisai, but that was like a pure boxer who's a physical force who like break people down and dent them at will. Like there's just not going to be any moving her. She's going to be a lot to handle. Like I picked against it because I knew the name and I knew she knocked people out, but I didn't really know anything about her. She's good. Like she's the real deal. She's really good. She's gonna like you can't stand in with her. If you stand in with her, she's gonna break you down.
And plus, she has the height that you think that she could easily move up a few more weight classes. Especially in women's boxing, where women will bounce up far more than men do. She's at 130 right now. You know, Katie Taylor's at 135. I could see all these fights materializing. Michaela Mayer's in that weight range as well. There's a lot of fun fights there for Terry Harper. I don't know her relationship to Katie Taylor, but that seems like a women's super fight in the UK down the line.
I think she beats Katie Taylor just because she's too physical for her. Like Katie's not a big puncher. I mean, Katie would have to box perfectly. Like there's a blueprint for Katie Taylor to beat her, right? But she would have to execute that game plan perfectly and not get drawn into because you would say that Katie Taylor is the better pure boxer, right? Like if it's a pure boxing match, Katie Taylor should win.
The issues with Katie Taylor is that she gets sucked into fights she shouldn't. It's not that she isn't skilled, right? I can see if Katie Taylor is sticking to a game plan because she does craft really good game plans, but the issue is sticking to the game plan. If she can stick to a game plan, she does beat Terry Harper. I think she can. Like that's not out of the question. I think it's close to 50-50 fight, but probably lean maybe Katie Taylor. But when you add the X factor of Katie Taylor's consistent nature, consistent lack of ability to control a fight, so to speak. I'm going to use that term maybe a little bit too broadly for Katie Taylor. But I think it is an element that she doesn't necessarily control fights as well as her skills lead you to think she should. And that could mean that Terry Harper can definitely have issues for Katie Taylor, but it's also a little bit maybe too soon. I think Katie Taylor is also, physically speaking, maybe not as strong of a hitter as Terry Harper, but she's a bruiser on the inside as well in just terms of activity, volume. That would be interesting to see in the dynamics of those two. Leonard Sterling saying Terry Harper is not ready for Katie Taylor. Taylor schooled Wahlstrom. But I would say Terry Harper schooled Wahlstrom. Right? I mean, I remember that fight, and she did school Ava Wahlstrom. But I would also say that Terry Harper did in this fight as well. Would you say Harper schooled Wahlstrom here in this fight, or would you say Katie Taylor was more dominant against Ava Wahlstrom in their fight?
I would say Katie Taylor was more dominant because the first half, about the first half of the Harper fight was pretty competitive, right? Like, and then in the second half, 6, 7, 8, I guess from the 6th round on the show, she pretty much dominated the fight. But the first half of that fight, I had it pretty close. I gave at least 2 of the first 5 rounds to Ava Wahlstrom. So I probably had it 3-2 after 5, and then from that point on. But again, rephrase your question. What's your question again exactly?
Obviously, we have a common opponent between Harper and Katie Taylor, 2 fighters we're talking about fighting in the near future. both fought Avery Wahlstrom. Who was more dominant in their fight with Avery Wahlstrom? Was it Katie Taylor or was it Terry Harper?
I can't.
Recency bias and obviously the fact that we just saw it yesterday, I'm leaning Harper. But again, I probably need to go back and watch the Katie Taylor Avery Wahlstrom fight.
I need to go back and watch the Katie Taylor fight because I remember Katie Taylor winning that pretty handily. And like, my hunch is Katie Taylor. I got to go back and watch the Katie Taylor fight. But I think they both handled it the way that they wanted to. Like, I think they both did what they wanted to do for the most part.
Let's move on to the other fight we're going to talk about in depth. Kid Galahad defeating Claudio Morero in really dominant fashion here, man. Like I know a lot of people hate Kid Galahad for some reason, and I can kind of see why people think he's a boring fighter. But I was blown away by his craftiness on the inside, his ability to land shots at will, flush shots wherever he was in the ring, in relation to his opponent, in relation to the ropes. It didn't matter. Like, he was landing shots when he was backing up, when he was going out the side door. He was landing shots consistently to the point where Claudio Morero was so confused, where you can tell he was so frustrated, and he also never felt like relaxed. He never felt safe because no matter what he was doing, he was getting clocked. You know, there'd be points where they would be clinched up and disengaging, and Galahad would throw a two-piece and connect them clean on Claudio Morero, just consistently. And most of the time when you're disengaged from the clinch, you feel a little bit of safetiness, especially when your opponent's the one backing away. But Kid Galahad was, I thought, quite proficient, quite active on the back foot, so to speak. And again, really crafty. I thought the elbows on the inside were dirty, but I loved it. I'll be honest. Gary, are you of, I think, the consensus that kind of hated on this fight, thought Galahad was boring, or are you like me and thought it was a masterclass of inside boxing? So to speak?
I thought it was a masterful performance. I'm with you. I know people are going to hate on it. He was switching between is he a natural left-hander, right? He's a natural left-hander, or is he right-handed that fights left-handed?
I want to say he's a natural southpaw, but he's probably one of those that's a natural southpaw, but that has a stronger lead hand.
He was switching mid-combination. It was good. He was fighting brilliantly on the inside. He was making Morero miss, right? Without holding, without running. He was just making a miss. It was a great performance. And I thought Warrington beat him in the first fight. I know you and Rob disagree. I thought Warrington won a close fight.
He did it.
The featherweight division right now is on fire. It's a 4-dog race, and I still think Gary Russell's the best, but you have 4 contrasting styles with 4, great fighters. And I'm going to say Kid Galahad's a great fighter off of that performance. You have Galahad, Warrington, Shakur Stevenson, and Gary Russell Jr. And I just hope they all fight each other because they are going to make brilliant high-speed chess matches, the 4 of those guys. Another
thing I want to know, and Gary, maybe quickly go yell at your kids because it sounds like one of them is body slamming the other. The issue in Kid Galahad's fight with Josh Warrington, because like you said, I thought he won, but you thought Josh Warrington won. I have no issue if you thought Josh Warrington won, because Kid Galahad wasn't pulling the trigger enough. Like, simply put, like, just a very basic way of saying it. He did not pull the trigger enough. He was not aggressive enough, even as a defensive fighter. Because we talk about this often, even recently, like with Anthony Sims losing his fight, right? You can be a defensive fighter on the back foot moving, but you still need to pull the trigger. You still need to fire off shots to win rounds, right? You still need to fire off a jab. You still need to do certain things. You can't just shell up and, work to slip shots, roll under shots, and evade offense. And even if you're quite successful in that, you need to also throw offense back. Even if it's limited offense, you still need to throw something back. Galahad lost that Warrington fight by not pulling the trigger enough, not being aggressive enough, even being a defensive fighter. What did he do in this fight? He was still a defensive wizard, but he was ultra aggressive. He came out in the first round, Gary. I don't know if you remember this, but he threw a 4-piece off the bat. Like in the first 10 seconds, he threw a combination. And you can tell that Moreo was like, oh shit, this isn't supposed to go down this way. I was supposed to get in my rhythm and be the aggressor here. And Galahad was pressuring him, elbowing him, just being a dog in his face. And I talk about this before with Demetrius Andrade, right? A guy that I've criticized in the past. And Galahad is another guy that I've criticized in the past a lot. But when I see defensive fighters hear criticism from fans, from media, from experts, from pundits, and actually improve on those issues, listen to the criticism and learn from that criticism, I can't help but tip my hat. And clearly, Galahad looked at the tape from the Warrington fight and adjusted big time in this fight. And I'm curious going forward, do we see more of this aggressive, mauling Galahad who made Claudio Morel no mas? Like I feel like we need to be talking about that more. That he made Claudio Morel, who's a really tough, durable fighter, a top 10 or top 15 guy, I should say, made him retire on the stool, made him quit. He didn't really get hurt, didn't really get knocked down, but he was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm getting clocked everywhere. I'm not successful. I'm done. That is impressive from Kid Galahad. And if he can fight Shakur Stevenson, Josh Warrington in a rematch like that, Gary Russell, King Tug, Shu Shan, whoever, we have a potential for Kid Galahad to be a dark horse in this division and take over. I'm a firm believer of that. And you mentioned a 4-horse race in the division. Who's that 4 horses? I want
to. Russell, Shakur Stevenson, and then the 2 British guys, Warrington and Galahad.
And the 2 British guys. Those Brits, the red coats.
Match up those 4 guys in any way, shape, or form. I don't care who they fight. Just fight each other in some facet. I don't care. Like, just, those 4 horsemen, just let them all fight each other multiple times. It's going to be great. Like,
and even if it's not like great from like a aesthetic perspective, from like a casual perspective, from an entertainment action perspective, like imagine like Shakur Stevenson and Kid Galahad boxing together in the ring. Like, that is such high level boxing in front of us. It may not be the most violent boxing, but it's high level boxing. There's no way to dispute that. Gary, anything else you want to talk about on this card? Martin Joseph Ward, David Allen, John Doherty.
I didn't get to watch Martin Joseph Ward. How did he do?
He looked good.
Okay.
He won on points. I think he knocked him down. What was it? 7th round. And again in the 10th due to body shots. I thought he looked really good. I think he's a good prospect. I think he's one of those guys where, because he is so flashy, for lack of a better term, he can get hit. And against top level competition, I am concerned about, his durability. It's not like this guy's perfect, so to speak. I get Tevin Farmer vibes, so to speak. I get a lot of Tevin Farmer vibes from Martin Joseph Ward. That's not a knock on him. Tevin Farmer's a top 5, top 10 guy, right? Like, that's no knock on Martin Joseph Ward. I just see him being that, where he might collect a belt at some point, but ever being a consensus guy in the division, no. But a perennial guy. I think he's that talented. And David Allen, I mean, he put on a fight.
He fought a guy.
He fought a guy.
I don't know where they found him, but it was a guy, and he was willing to fight.
Look, I promise you where they found him. It was at a pub. Because it's 3 on every corner in England. Come on, let's be honest.
It was a scheduled 8-rounder, that fight?
6. Oh my god.
Money, $2,000 a round. Who wants a $12,000 purse? Anybody?
You think they paid him $12,000?
I mean, don't you kind of have to pay the guy something? He knows he's going to get knocked out, right? Don't you have to kind of make it worth his while?
I bet there's like a 6,000.
1,000 round. Eddie can go a little deeper than that. Eddie's got deep pockets.
There's backroom checks. Like the UK, actually, there's not backroom checks over there. There is. Stop.
I mean, there's always is, but I don't know if it's like what we have here.
No, I'm not saying it's the equivalent to that, but I can see him getting paid $6,000 up front, and let's say like another $3,000 or $4,000, on the back end. Yeah. As like, hey, we know you took this fight on like 4 days' notice. Thank you.
Let's say you're in sparring shape, right? Like you go to the gym and you're in sparring shape. And I say, hey, 10 days, get ready, get knocked out by David Allen. Is 10 grand enough for you? Would you do it for 10 grand? It depends on.
Quickly, Gary, because this is important. To circle back to our conversation about featherweight and how great it is, and we're obviously going to talk about Gary Russell in a minute. Leonard Sterling bringing up a person that I love to rip on. Oscar Valdez would not be in my top 3 even if he stayed at 126. Oscar Valdez wouldn't be in my top 6 or 7 if he was still at 126. If we're being brutally fucking honest. Like Shushan beats Oscar Valdez. I'd go on that ledge. Gary.
Shushan.
Don't hate on him. He's beautiful.
He is. He can't punch though. There's no power. Like I feel like his ceiling is where it's like Paulie Malignaggi. It's like, or Josh Warrington. Like
Oscar Valdez has no power either. He's knocked out cab drivers in LA for 5 years now. Okay, and he had his face broken in by Scott Quigg. Come on, man. Like, it's Valdez. Who has he beaten? Name the best opponent that he has collected a win from.
Quigg.
I don't count Scott Quigg because I'll be honest, he did not win that fucking fight.
And I always say I always want to say Cerveza, but that's beer. Genesis Cerveza, Savania.
Oh my god, I forgot about that fight.
That guy's a good opponent. Like he always.
He's a top 30-ish guy. He's a top 30-ish guy. You know, and that's not a knock on him.
No, he earns his check though. Like he's gonna make you fight. You can beat him, but you have to earn your check that night.
Joette Gonzalez is better than him.
Let's make that fight. I would like to see that fight. I mean, I think Joette Gonzalez can outbox him, but Joette Gonzalez is gonna have to earn that. Like Cerveza, how do you say it's Savania, right?
I think it's Savania.
He's on him.
You know what's sad is that you can make a legitimate argument. It's not a great argument, but you can make an argument that Shakur Stevenson is a far more valid champion than Oscar Valdez is and ever was.
Who did Oscar Valdez beat to get his belt?
Look it up. Look it up, Gary.
It has to be better than the guy Broner beat to get his first belt.
God knows, man. Who did Broner beat first belt? It wasn't DeMarco, obviously.
Came at 135. I don't even remember the guy's name, but he was like 17-7 or something like that. And Paulie Malignaggi, like the guy's got to go work in the bodega to go pay the sanctioning fees. Like, like it was ridiculous. And Paulie was like, you know who I got for my first title shot? Miguel Cotto. Like, there's a difference. I'll look it up. Hang on.
Yeah, poor Paulie, man. My first title, Miguel Cotto, poor bastard. Leonard saying it's Gradovich. Oh, it was that. Yeah, Ivani Gradovich. Who's better, Gradovich or Joette Gonzalez?
Like you always say, Joette Gonzalez doesn't have any names yet. But I think Joette Gonzalez has good skill. I mean, Gradovich has a better resume.
Does he, or is he?
All kinds of losses. They're all losses.
Gradovich was just on HBO. That's that. He didn't have a better resume. He was just on HBO. That's why we knew him. That's why we knew him all the time, because he was on HBO. Matt, I know you remember the guy who he fought. He had the thick eyebrows. Did Gradovich have thick eyebrows? I don't really remember that. That's going back in like years now. Valdez has been a champion for a long time, people. That's going back, what, 4 or 5 years ago? But digressing, let's move on for the sake of just, we don't need to be talking about Oscar Valdez being trash for too long.
I have that name, that Broner beat for the title. Are you ready? Okay. What happened? Okay, it's Vicente Martin Rodriguez.
Who did he fight after fighting Broner? Did he fight anyone again? That was notable.
I think he took that paycheck because I'm sure they gave him a decent check, and I probably never fought him. But I'll let me.
Are you on box track?
Yeah. After Broner, he fought Sergio Javier Escobar, who was 18-16-2. He never fought a guy of note. He never fought in the USA. He only fought in Argentina. And he fought once in I don't know what country this is.
I don't know what country this is. What, Gary? What do you mean? What is it?
I don't know. Like it has the flag, and then it's like is this Spanish? I guess it's Spain. Maybe I don't know what flag that is.
Is it yellow and like red?
It's yellow, yeah,
Yeah,
red.
that's
All right.
probably Spain.
Oh, it's Belgium. That's why I didn't recognize it. It's a Belgium. Oh, Delphine Pursuit fought on that card. So it was okay. Yeah.
On the Broner card or a different?
No. No, I was talking about who Vicente Martin Rodriguez fought next. He fought all his fights in Argentina, and then he fought once more in Belgium against Heidi Slimani. And Delphine Pursoon fought in that card for the WBC lightweight title.
I love going back in history with you, Gary. About random B-sides.
Who do you got, Delphine Pursoon or Vicente Martin Rodriguez?
Pursoon,
right? Yeah.
I got Pursoon over Gradovic. Let's get to the Showtime card. The PBC on Showtime card. Gary Russell Jr. fighting Tugaset Nyambayar, aka King Tug. Gary Russell, I thought, looked fantastic. Excuse me. Obviously, he tired. I think he tired down as the rounds went on. I think the body work of King Tug did start having an effect, but Gary Russell dominated the first 4 rounds at least. I think he made King Tug miss consistently all night. He made him pay with sharp combinations. The hand speed difference alone, the athleticism difference alone. On top of it, I think even though King Tug, his defensive work might get a little bit underrated after this fight. But I thought, defensively speaking, he was very good. But Gary Russell was just on a different level entirely. And also, I think King Tug was worried about the power of Gary Russell to some degree. Because there's points where King Tug would parry shots and be in complete position to counter off that parry. And just didn't. And the times he did counter off that parry, he was successful. The times he did jab off the parry, he was successful. He just really didn't pull the trigger. And talking about, Kid Galahad losing his fight to Josh Warrington and just not pulling the trigger, having maybe the tools to beat Josh Warrington definitively in the fight, but just didn't do enough. I think King Tug is definitely talented enough, skilled enough to come after this fight, to learn from it and improve and be a legitimate contender / champion down the line. But he has to improve from this fight. He has to look at it and say, I didn't pull the trigger at all in the first 4 rounds. Or I headhunted in the first 4 or 6 rounds, didn't go to the body at all, and that cost me dearly. There's certain things he can definitely look at and say, I just need to do X, Y, and Z better going forward in these big fights. But Gary Russell Jr., like I said, I thought he showed his class. He showed the levels he had in this boxing game. I mean, I think there is no argument against this. The best pure boxers in the featherweight division is Gary Russell Jr., Shakur Stevenson, and Kid Galahad in that order. Gary, your thoughts on Gary Russell's performance?
Great name. All his brothers have great names, by the way.
Yes.
I'm with you. I thought the performance was excellent. Like, it's amazing to me how a guy who only fights every couple of years can stay so sharp.
Hold on. It's once a year, not every couple of years, Gary.
It is once a year. It's like leap year. It's once every 4. No, I thought the performance was every bit as good as you do, and it's just when Gary Russell Jr. takes a year off, and he's entitled to do so. He is denying the world a beautiful art form. He is, and it's his right to do it. He doesn't owe it to anyone, and he's open about it. Like, I fight once a year, right? But he is so good. Like, he has the best. I'm glad you said it. He is the best pure boxer in the featherweight division, and maybe in boxing. He may have the best skills in boxing. Like, he just doesn't fight enough for us to remember how good he is. He hasn't built the resume because he only fights once a year. But he is so good, and so the hand speed is so dynamic. I mean,
quickly imagine a world where post Leo Santa Cruz, Carl Frampton, we also had not just Abner Maros jump in that mix, but also Gary Russell jump in that mix, and they all fight each other. Gary Russell could theoretically have been all 3 of those opponents and have Leo Santa Cruz, Abner Maros, and Carl Frampton in his ledger, and he doesn't. And that is such a hit on his legacy that we can't even quantify that. Like how much it sucks, like you said, he didn't fight enough, he didn't get the right fights at the right times, whatever it may be, because his legacy could be entirely different. We could be talking about Gary Russell in that top 5 pound for pound discussion. We could be if he has those names on his resume. He doesn't, though. Back to you, Gary. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying. He has pound for pound talent. He has pound for pound skills. He just doesn't have a pound for pound resume. And I just hope that this is the year that he fights twice a year. And I know he's not gonna, but like there's so much talent in the featherweight division. I want to see him fight.
So you're on record right now saying that he's done for the rest of the year. In 2020, we're not going to see Gary Russell again.
That's what I'm on the record saying that.
Oh, man, I don't think that. He said he wants to fight.
Okay, if he says he wants to fight, then maybe he'll fight again. And his ring entrances are second to none.
They're pretty good, yes. What do you think King Tug goes from here? Like your thoughts on him post this fight?
I don't want to see him take a tune-up like against a cab driver. Because look, I think he showed he has top 10 skills. Like he looked good. And in the second half of that fight, he especially the last 4 or 5 rounds, he fought Gary Russell pretty evenly. So he's good. He's a good fighter. He just wasn't good enough to beat Gary Russell that night, especially when you fall down 4 or 5 rounds off the bat. Like I think the first round I gave King Tug was the 6th. But that he won some rounds and he did some work, and like the body attack is good. He's a really good fighter. It's right now that division. Like Danny Garcia is a really good fighter. It's going to be tough for him to win a world title. Yeah. It's going to be tough for King Tug to win a world title because that division is really tough. Where does he go next? Fight Seha next, right? Seha doesn't like to make 122 anymore. Fight Seha, beat Seha, and then let's see where he goes. Let's see if we can get him another title shot, or then get him a top, 5, 6, 7, 8 guy after that.
I'm gonna add to that because I do like the Seha mention. Seha maybe just moving up. I like that. It'd be a fun fight. It'd be all action fight, and I think King Tug wins that fight. But poor Seha, man. Poor guy, man. He's just the whipping post kid, man. 122 to 126. I would love to see King Tug versus Shushan. China versus Mongolia, an ancient rivalry. Let's go. Give me that. Give me it in Mongolia, in Beijing. I don't care. Wait the 6 months till coronavirus is done with, because that's how long it's going to take, and make that fight in China. Imagine Gary. Okay, if
rivalry is right, that's a real old rivalry.
It's ancient, man. I don't know Asian sports or Asian culture or demographics enough when it comes to like making fights and like how well this would sell. I don't know that, but it's boxing, and this is China versus Mongolia. If I'm Bob Arum, who has Shushan, right, and if I'm Al Heyman and PBC, I'm looking at this potential fucking gold mine of a China versus Mongolia boxing fight in China and saying, yes, Bob, let's make this fight ASAP. First off, it's a great fight. Secondly, it's for a belt. So, all parties involved are really happy then. And I do think, potentially speaking, if you promote it right over there, that could be a massive cultural fight in China and Mongolia. Like, that could be one of those fights we talk about when we talk about, like, AJ Fury needing to be in the UK, because long term, how many fans, how many people could become interested in the sport, because that is a cultural moment. It transcends just being boxing. It's a cultural moment now. Tyson Fury, AJ, right? That's why it needs to be in the UK. Similar, again, not one-to-one analog here, but similar, I can see a path to trying to make Shushan King Tug a cultural moment that's transcendental, not to us over here, and that's fine. It can just be a hardcore hipster fight for us here, but be a cultural, transcendental moment over there. And that would be fantastic to create the next Murata or Inoue in Asia in terms of stardom, but now in China or Mongolia. Like, that would be massive. And let's not forget, I know Mongolia as a country is small, and it has like a 3 million population in the country, but like 1 in 4 people are related to Genghis Khan. Like, there's a lot of people. It's not that much, but there's a lot of fucking people, Gary, that are related to that guy. I mean, there's a lot of people that have Mongolian heritage as well. It's similar to like Filipinos. Like, Filipinos are not just in the Philippines. There's a massive Filipino population worldwide, similar to Mongolia and Mongolians. That's why you had a lot of Mongolians there in Allentown, Pennsylvania, because Mongolians are fucking everywhere, man.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought Allentown, isn't that the Amish town, or what is Amish town? Is that?
I don't know if that's Amish town, but I think it is close because I've been to
On vacation?
Unfortunately, yes, Gary, when I was a kid.
Oh, near clear across the country to go to Amish town?
It was one of the very few things we did. Not few things. It was one of the many things we did. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. We did it for an afternoon. Driving through the East Coast.
Okay.
Don't make it sound like that's what we did. We went to Gettysburg, did all of that. Went to Boston, went to Baltimore, did all of the East Coast bullshit.
Okay. So you didn't take a 7-day, week-long vacation
to churn butter and shit without the internet? No. I bet some of our international listeners are like, Amish, what the fuck is that? Please look them up.
They don't use electricity at all.
They're Mormons, but funnier. At least Mormons have a cool, like, air quotes, cool religion that has like aliens and like space battles in it. Like, that's cool. The Amish, they're just weird Christians that don't want like technology. Fuck out of here. But digressing, back to the Showtime card. King Tug, Shushan, thought in China. Like, thoughts on that? Because I've been ranting about that for the last.
We all pick. Who would you pick to win?
King Tug.
I would too. Okay.
Yeah.
So
close though. It's only because I think he has a little more power, and that's the only reason.
You'd have to do it in China, right? Because the purse would be much bigger in China than Mongolia.
Absolutely.
Okay. I guess the purse is big enough to bring him over to China, but if you're King Tug, aren't you a little worried about getting a bad decision in China fighting? I mean, I would say I'll come over to China, but we need all American. Well, it doesn't need to be Americans, but all non-Chinese or non-Mongolian refs and judges. I'll come over, but like that's the.
I bet that's probably an aspect of the negotiation that would happen for that type of fight. Absolutely. Remember when Bob Arum was big on shoe shimming?
I couldn't think of his name. There you go. Yeah.
And then he just kept getting knocked out. And like, oh, did he have? He had like an eye injury, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Detached retina? Do you have a detached retina?
Sounds right. Yeah.
But I mean, he was supposed to be the next big thing. I know, like, Shushan isn't that, but
he's got to be better than that guy.
Like, in terms of star power, Shu Shiming was well known because he was a massive amateur from China, had a lot of attention already from China. Shu Shan's a little bit more of a hardcore, in my understanding, even in China. So you would have to sort of do a lot of the legwork to build up this fight. It's not like it would be Shu Shiming coming into a massive fight against a Mongolian fighter that's a well-known fighter. That would be an almost automatic transcendental moment. This one you have to work for it. You can't just match these guys up, put it in Beijing, and say, "Oh, it's now going to be the biggest thing in China in boxing history." Like, you're going to have to work for this one still to a degree. And I think this fight is big enough to where you're going to have those negotiations to a degree, in terms of judges and stuff. But King Tug, he should get the knockout in that fight, largely speaking. It would be a fun action fight till about the 8th to 10th round, and then I think King Tug gets him out of there. Let's move on, though, unless you have anything else to say about Gary Russell. Guillermo Rigondeaux defeated Laborio Solis via split decision. I thought that was wild. I thought Guillermo Rigondeaux dominated after like the second round, to be quite honest. The first round, we saw very similar style as the Hula Serra fight with Guillermo Rigondeaux, where he struggled, was in the dogfight, and honestly, he was getting hurt Solis was catching him, hurting him in that first round significantly. And then we saw the Rigo of old pull up, and we were wondering whether or not Rigo's legs were gone. No, they are not. He can run around that ring, no problem, Gary. And he outclassed Liborio Solis for the next 10 rounds, it felt like. I honestly have no idea how you can give 7 rounds to Liborio Solis in this fight, even with the knockdowns as well. Like, I just don't know how we had anyone score this fight for Solis. But digressing, Gary, thoughts on Gamma his performance, and also I didn't preview this. This fight was at 118, and we didn't discuss that in the preview of this fight. We should have. Rigondeaux is now in Nayao Inui's weight class.
I wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, dramatic music somewhere. I don't have my soundboard anymore, guys. Apologies. Gary, thoughts on everything about Guillermo Rigondeaux, his performance, and also what's next, and what super fights you think could be made.
I talked to Santiago at the fight. We said anywhere from 10-2 to 8-4 for Rigondeaux with a reasonable scorecards. You could score the first 3 rounds for
for Solis.
Yeah, and then after that, it's kind of hard to find. I mean, maybe you can find 1 or 2 from somewhere, but Rigondeaux dominated the fight. After that first, I'm like, well, here's the end of Rigondeaux. Here's where his career comes unhinged. Like I'm watching, like when Joe Smith destroyed Bernard Hopkins. I'm watching that via Gamma Rigondeaux. Like this.
Dude, I was thinking that. I was like, oh, this is Roy Jones. It's Bernard Hopkins. Like I've seen this time and time again, and all of a sudden, nope, not today.
And it was what he had to do to win the fight, right? Like a lot of times, like you see people like Marquez later in their career, they had to stand in more and they had to trade because they can't move. No, he has to move. And then like he baits you in and then nails you with the left hand. It's like this guy is like a genius or something. Like I want to just sit with him and just talk boxing and be like, yeah.
I want to watch tape. I want to and look, I've
what you see, because you're like brilliant.
I've interviewed him right before, and that's actually the only interview I've ever had where I had a trainer and manager stop the interview because of the line of questioning. Thought that was funny. But Rigondeaux was actually a very cool person, and he's almost. This isn't probably the right term, and apologies, but like he's almost like a savant in this game. I get that vibe from him. Like he's on a different wavelength when he's thinking about this. He's in a different world. He's something special. He is. He's Mozart in there. And it's really sad that he had to jump up to 130 to fight Lomachenko when now he's at 118 at 40 years old. That's really unfortunate that that's probably his most notable fight. I also want to note this before you jump back in, Gary. The speed of Guillermo Rigondeaux. Obviously, when you talk about athletes, the first thing to go is usually speed and their athleticism, their explosiveness. That was not gone at all. I was blown away by how fast that left hand is still. And it was still fast in the Sarah fight, but this was like the prime Rigondeaux of old, to be quite honest. Like this was vintage Rigo. And I loved it. I know people hated it, like Dan Rayfield, because they're gonna hate it.
Dan Rayfield doesn't know anything about boxing. He didn't like it. He's not a boxing fan, right? Like he got a job covering boxing. He's not. Come on, I don't respect anything Dan. Like if Dan Rayfield reports news, okay, I'll accept it. But like if he gives his opinion on boxing, I'm not interested in that. He doesn't know anything about boxing.
Agreed. But I saw a lot of people hating on this, and same with like Galahad and Andrade. Like you can get a lot of hate on these types of performances, but this was beautiful to me. This was sublime boxing right here, and his ability to switch it up after that first round, that cannot be understated. Like I thought he was done. I thought, like Gary said, we were watching the demise of Guillermo Rigondeaux in front of us. We saw the cracks with Seha. It's happening. And then within a minute, obviously in that rest period between rounds, nope, he was prime Rigo again. He's like, yeah. So as you were used to me just standing in front of you, not throwing shots. Well, guess what? For the next 11 rounds, I'm going to make you chase me around this goddamn ring. And whenever you make a mistake, I'm going to land this left hand so fucking fast and hard, you're going to wish you weren't here. And he did that. Again, blown away by Rigondeaux and his ability to adjust so fast from such a disastrous first round. And again, look like vintage Rigo. To look more forward for Rigo, we have obviously Obali versus Nonito Donaire under the PBC stable happening next for the WBC belt. Rashi Warren, obviously under the PBC stable, is obviously seeing more like realistic options for Rigondeaux moving forward. But we have Nayao Inoue versus Casamore, the unification happening in April. Obviously, Inoue is pound for pound top 5 fighter, a guy that is a hardcore hipster darling. Thoughts on Rigondeaux's next 12 months to 18 months? What does it look like realistically? What do you want to see? And is it possible for Rigondeaux to come in here, beat the winner of Obali Donaire, beat the winner of Inoue Casamore, and all of a sudden is the king of 118 at 40 years old?
I want to see the Donaire rematch. Like, that's what I was thinking when he put this performance together. And I think Donaire wants it too, because I think Donaire thinks he could have done better in the first fight. And he started late, right? And he knocked him down. He got back into the fight, but it was too little, too late, like Rigo had done. And then Rigo won the 12th round big. I think Donaire, like that was Donaire's biggest fight at that point. And I think it like sticks in his craw that I could have done better that fight. Mm-hmm. I think he wants that rematch, and I think Rigo, if he fights the way he fought yesterday, he could beat him. If he fights the way he fought Saya, he's going to lose.
Or in the first round.
Right. The way he fought in the first round. If he fights Donaire that way, he's going to lose. I think that he is going to be difficult for anyone at 118. I think he could beat anyone at 118 except for the monster. I think that
you think there's no way Rigo could beat?
There's too much firepower. I don't think. No.
Too much firepower.
Too much firepower from the monster.
What?
You don't think so?
Dude, Donaire walked him down.
Donaire's big, though. I mean, I guess Rigo comes down to. Let's see how they look in the ring. I get the monster's not big at that size. That's why we were talking about him going up to featherweight. I was like, let's just chill on that, right?
Who's a better athlete, Rigo or Inoue?
Who's better? Rigo. I think you're gonna say Donaire. I'm like, Donaire doesn't look like an athlete, but he is.
No, but
better athlete than
Rigo's better athlete than Inoue. Okay.
Yeah.
Who has more power?
Inoue.
At 118.
Inoue. Inoue's got freakish power. Rigo's got a great left hand. He's got great power. But it's based on timing you right? Like timing beats speed. He's got both, right? It was just like one punch power. If they traded, Inoue's got more power. Inoue's got freakish power.
Who's a better boxer?
Rigo.
Okay. Since they do have a common opponent in Donaire, who was more dominant in their win against Donaire?
I had both guys winning wide, but Rigo did what he wanted to do more than.
You had Inoue winning wide against Donaire?
I had it fairly wide, yeah. I had 8-4 or something like that with a knockdown, yeah. I didn't think it was a great action fight, but I didn't think the rounds were as close as everyone else did. I had Inoue winning that fight pretty wide. And I had Rigo imposed his will on Donaire, a prime Donaire, better than Inoue did for sure. But that was also, what was that, 7 years ago? Like that's not that was a 31-year-old Rigo, not a 38 or 39-year-old Rigo.
And similar, it was a better Donaire.
Absolutely.
That was a prime Donaire.
I thought Donaire was going to walk through him. I thought Donaire was going to walk through everyone at that point.
I think it's a little bit laughable to say, oh, Rigo could beat all these guys, Obali, Donaire, everyone. But Inoue, no, can't beat him. I think that's laughable. I mean, especially I think you should go back and watch the Donaire fight. Have you watched that fight more than?
I watched it again that day. I haven't watched it since.
The next week or so, since we're obviously on this topic, go back and watch that fight. I mean, we do have Inoue having his face broken in. Like that cannot be ignored. You know, like
did great work, but I don't think he was winning rounds. He was landing plenty of shots, but he was also eating more shots. Like he did good work, and there were rounds that he won, and there was a round where he had Inoue in a bit of trouble. Like but I didn't think like on the scorecards the fight was that close. And it was split. Was it split or was it majority? Like
it was fight of the year. If you cannot be a dominant fight and be fight of the year. Like that's you can't, Gary. Like that is so laughable to say. Oh, Inoue dominated Donaire. Like he didn't. It was fight of the year. People was calling it fight of the century for fuck's sake.
Well,
there's no way that was a dominant performance.
Gaddy Ward 3 was fight of the year. It wasn't close on the cards. They both ate a million shots and traded.
Gary, you acting like an 8-4 scorecard means anything.
But that's what I'm saying. The scorecard, the fight was closer than the scorecards would indicate. Is that fair?
You said Inoue dominated Tony.
No, he won wide. I said he won wide.
That's another way of saying he dominated.
Then I think he did. I think he did the better work in the vast majority of the rounds and got a knockdown. Like, in my mind, there was no question going to the scorecards who won that fight.
Okay. Maybe it was because I was awake at 4 a.m. watching that live. I didn't think that was clear that Inoue won that heading in, even with the knockdown. I think for a large percentage of people out there, because it was a fight of the year, fight of the decade conversation, that's implying that it was hyper close and hyper competitive and hyper violent. And again, along that lines, I just don't think that if we see that Inoue against Donaire, against Rigo, that it's a foregone conclusion that Inoue wins this fight.
Let me ask. Okay, so you go back and watch the fight too.
Yeah.
Tell me, I don't care how you had it scored. Just tell me how many rounds you think Inoue clearly won.
Okay.
Throw away any toss-up round. I don't care who you give the toss-up round. So I think he won this many rounds clearly. And then he's got a 2-point round as well for the knockdown. So, but that's it. Like, if you have 4 toss-up rounds and whatever, just tell me how many rounds he clearly won that many.
Will do. Absolutely. I think Naoya Inoue is a very great fighter. Gemma Ringendao is a very great fighter as well. And historically speaking, is the better boxer. It's just that to me is the 50-50 fight of the division now. Is Inoue Rigo. So that to me is the fight at 118. Everything else is ancillary. It's a second, third, fourth order issue or fight. The first order fight that we need to talk about is Inoue Rigo.
Do you think under any circumstance Bob Arum makes that fight?
No. No. I think Bob Arum had his lightweight darling from Asia get destroyed by Rigo once already in Donaire. He's not going to do this again. That's unfortunately a very sad part. And especially, no offense to Rigo here, but off of that performance, like imagine what Bob Arum's thoughts on Rigo are after that performance last night.
What about Manny Rodriguez? Would you take a Rigo Manny Rodriguez fight next? Because they did PBC.
Like, would I watch that?
I mean, would you be happy? I mean, assuming he can't get Inoue next.
No. It should definitely not be Manny Rodriguez. If it's not Obali Donaire winner next, because that's who it should be, then I'm okay with Rashid Warren.
Okay, Warren is fine. I was just saying maybe you want to bring up because if the Obali Donaire fight is in April, I mean,
yeah, I think so.
So I'm saying they're probably not going to want to fight again until the end of the year. I'm saying if you want to bring Rigo back before that.
Yeah, put Rigo Rashid Warren on that card.
I like that fight. That's a great fight. I mean, Rigo wins it, but that's a high level fight. And
also, like, I don't know why promoters don't do that more often. Is put a co-main on or a third fight on the card, like the card opener, so to speak, on the telecast that is directly linked to the main event. So there's a narrative on the card of the winner of this fight is probably going to fight the winner of this fight on this card later down the line in 2 months, 3 months down the line. They should do that. I would put Rigo Rashid Warren as the co-main to Obali Donaire. And that's a fantastic card. Like, that's a boxing fans card right there. May not be for the casuals, but for us hardcores, that's perfect.
it was like he didn't look drained at 118, nor did he look like a massive 118 pounder. He looked like a pretty status quo 118 pounder.
Solis looked bigger, I would say, as well.
Right? Like,
yeah.
So the fact that he had to go up to 130 when he could have been fighting out 118 all along, it's kind of like eye opening, right? Like, it's like he was really outmanned in that fight. Like, he's fighting a guy literally 3 weight classes bigger than him because he should be at 118.
And then if you think about it, he's at 118 now. Loma's at 135. Yeah. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 weight classes apart.
When you only talking about 118 pounder to start with, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. I still have not gone back to watch this telecast, so I've not watched the is it Jamie or Jaime? How's it?
Jaime.
Is Jaime? Jaime Aboleda versus Jason Velez fight. Herod's amazing. I may go back and watch it when I have the time. Apologies. Gary, I assume you watched this fight.
Yeah.
Thoughts on it?
That was a great fight between 2 B- C+ level fighters. I mean, it was a great action fight. I thought the judges got it right. I know the fans didn't like the scorecard. Look, Velez came back and rallied, but he didn't win the fight. Like, it was close. And if you have it, I mean, you could probably work out a scorecard where Velez wins, but like, he didn't win. So like, if you really want to start giving all these close rounds, you could work it out, and I wouldn't be really pissed off at you. But how do you say the guy's last name? And he fought in the Valley on the Brandon Figueroa card. So this is a guy they like, and he's a fun offensive fighter, but he's not that good. I mean, this was at 130, right? No, Velez is at 130. I mean, he can't beat top-notch guys at 130 pounds. Like, if they put him with Chris Colbert, Colbert would school him. Like, that would be 120 to 108. He may even stop him. He beats him up so bad. Like, I don't even know that he beats Jezreel Corrales, honestly. Like, it was a fun fight, but let's keep it in perspective. He almost
no, of course. It's like the not to the same degree, but it's like your boy Ray Guajardo.
Yeah.
Which is Clay Collard. Like, that was just a sloppy, fun fight. No ramifications, no consequences, no, hey, this fight means this guy's going to be the future. Doesn't matter. That was just a fun fight. I kind of had that vibe going into it because it was just Jason Velez and Jaime Aboleda. Both guys, like you said, C+ fighters. Also, quick note on the untelevised portion of the card. Gary Antoine Russell, the brother of Gary Russell Jr., fighting at 140 pounds, picked up his 13th win and 13th win by KO as well. So he has a 100% knockout ratio. I don't know why this guy is not on TV. Like, I keep hearing stories about him, people that are going to these fights, because Gary Russell is predominantly an East Coast fighter. I'm not there, but they say he's amazing. They say he could be a lot better than Gary Russell even. And at 13-0 with 13 knockouts, I want to see him. So please, PBC Showtime, put him on telecast. That seems like a fun fighter. Jamonte Clark picked up a win as well. The other Gary, Russell brother, Gary, Antonio Russell, picked up a DQ win against Jesus Martinez, sorry. And that's about it from people that I know. Gary, any other thoughts on this undercard or this card at all, or any of the cards this weekend?
No, I just wanted to, I am so glad that Rigo is back, right? Like, I thought it was going to be one thing and it turned into be the complete 180-degree opposite. That 118-pound division now is so good. I guess Neary's gone, right? He's at 122, because that would be a makeable fight. But you want to see Rigo just stay at 118, right? Like, this looks like the weight he should have been at all along. Like, and there's plenty of talent and good fights for him there. Let's just have him stay there.
The way I see it, Luis Neary is now in the bracket of Ray Vargas, Brandon Figueroa, maybe a Ceja, guys of that nature and that sort of conversation. Now Gary Russell's in there with Obali, Donaire, Rashid Warren, that conversation of PBC fighters. And I'm fine with Neary and Rigo not being in the crosshairs of each other right now. I'd rather have that new Rigo fight. I'd rather have Al Heyman and Bob Arum make that fight, get over any grudges. Bob Arum get over his phobia of Guillermo Rigondeaux and Cuban boxers and make that fucking fight.
I want to see Rigo versus Donaire again, and then the winner fight a new way.
Because we were talking maybe a week ago, Gary, maybe 2 weeks ago, about Inoue's path to superstardom. Like, how do you get a guy that's at 118 pounds, that's a big star in one market, to be a massive star in a market that he's not from, he doesn't speak the common language in, and also is, historically speaking, in a weight class that's not popular in this market now. A fight with Guillermo Rigondeaux is not a path to superstardom, but it did wonders for Lomachenko.
It did. That's a great fight, but Bob ain't making it, right? Like,
no. And just to finish my point, and then I want to jump in here. Inoue Rigo, if Inoue wins that fight, he solidifies his maybe placement pound for pound number 1 in the world. Because then, the conversation that we had with Loma and Rigo about, like, oh, the weight class jump, like, that's why we discredit that win. Loma even discredits that win. That's not there at 118 with Rigo Inoue. That's a true passing of the torch moment. And we talk about that often on this show, that a generation of fighters, if they want to be the next stars, they have to beat the older generation of stars and have that torch be passed. If they don't, there's a disconnect from the casual audience to that generation. Look at the current welterweight division and how long it took them to get any recognition. Luckily, Pacquiao fought Keith Thurman and Adrian Broner. I think he added some legitimacy to those PBC names, just being there in their presence, so to speak. But for Inoue, what would give him legitimacy for a sporting audience? Guillermo Rigondeaux. That is the biggest and best name he can beat right now. Not Loma at some catchweight people are thinking about. No, that's not even feasible. Rigo is. And that's possibly, in my opinion, a more legacy-defining fight because he can actually win that one.
Who would you pick? Who? Because you seem like you're kind of, I'm not. I think Inoue beats him. I think a 25-year-old with that kind of firepower beats a 39-year-old. So who are you leaning towards?
I don't know. I
think it's that close, though.
Yes, absolutely. I think Inoue is, for lack of a better term, basic enough and predictable enough with his setups and combinations that I could see a guy like Rigo setting enough traps, hurting him enough times, winning enough rounds, and getting a win. Like, I would not classify Inoue as a guy that has a varied approach to his offense or defense. And with a guy like Rigo, who I think is such a mastermind in the ring, I could see Inoue being figured out. And not that Inoue is not going to have success. I could just see by round 4, 5, 6, the fight all of a sudden look different. And that not be out of the question because it's Rigo. And maybe he figures it out. He figures out, I seen a slip to this angle on this side at this time, all the times that Inoue throws this jab. And I'll be set up for this left hand every time. Because Inoue throws that same shot, that same setup, that same feint every goddamn time. And the one caveat to that is that we saw Inoue all of a sudden be a defensive fighter on the back foot, moving laterally and boxing that way against Donaire. That was a new wrinkle to his game, a new approach to his offensive side and defensive side that we have not seen before. However, I would not classify that as the game plan that he would have against Rigo. So we would have to see Inoue apply, in my opinion, a different type of pressure that he has never applied before. He's never had to apply before. So that's a question mark. While Rigo, I would not classify him as maybe a question mark. We've seen him against pressure power punchers, pound for pound greats like Donaire. And he schooled him. He figured out the angle where to slip, where to evade his shots, and how to set up his shots rather quickly. I could see that in a very similar way with Inoue. So again, I'm not picking Rigo right now. I'm just saying, I don't know yet. I don't want to know right now. I'm kind of loving the idea of just fantasizing about the matchup right now. And the more I think about it, the more I think Rigo is in this fight. And the idea of him being just a 39, 40-year-old fighter that's on his way out is no longer true, so to speak. And he's probably saying, remember the Payano setup? Yeah, but remember, it's Payano. Like it.
Yeah, no, Payano is. I mean, and it's a fight that Rigo needs because, like, Rigo has Hall of Fame skills, but he doesn't have a Hall of Fame resume because he never really got to fight. If he could beat Inoue at 39 years old, he's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer already, by the way. Just one point.
I mean, I would vote for him, right? Like if it was my vote, but like you can make an argument, a good argument that he doesn't have the resume to be a Hall of Famer.
If Donaire gets in, which he will, Rigo should get in. Like that's how I see it, and Donaire will get in.
Yeah, I think Rigo should get in, but like there's what is he 19-1 or 20-1? Like he doesn't have a whole ton of fights. I agree. No, I'm just saying.
Loma's going to get in. Loma could retire right now, and he will get in.
Loma's got belts at what 3 weight classes already.
Mm-hmm.
Rigo's only got belts in 1 weight class. So he should have. He'll get one in a second.
He'll get one at 122 when he beats Donaire in the rematch.
118, yeah.
Yeah.
He will. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, wait, didn't he pick up? Was the Donaire fight at 126 or
122?
It was at 122.
Yeah.
Nah, but even with just 1 weight class, it doesn't matter. He beat Donaire. Like that's a Hall of Fame win. Like, that's one of those wins that like you punch your ticket into Hall of Fame instantaneously, in my opinion. Because I view Donaire as a Hall of Fame fighter.
I do too. So by proxy, by
default, de facto reasoning, Rigo gets in. Double I in the chat saying Rigo has been getting caught in his last 2 fights. He's going to get caught again. I absolutely agree that Inoue is going to catch Rigo. But we then saw Rigo adjust in both those fights. Rigo adapt in both those fights. In the Seha fight, he knocked him out. In this fight, he adjusted within a round and outclassed him for the next 10, 11 rounds. So, yeah, I think Inoue is absolutely going to hurt Gemma Rigondeaux because Gemma Rigondeaux does commit flaws.
Yeah, you don't think it looks like this. You don't think he goes 12 rounds without getting phased, right? You think that
he did get phased against Solis
in the first round, right? And then he said, "Okay, no more of that." Right?
Yeah, so, I think, like I said, I think you're going to see 4 or 5 rounds of really competitive action. Rigo get hurt. It looked more of that close phone booth action where we see Rigo sacrifice his defensive movement, and then all of a sudden he realized, I don't need to do this anymore. I can do X, Y, and Z, and I'm just going to outclass him. And that is 100% a possibility. I'm not saying it's probable. I don't know yet. I need to do more tape study on Inoue, to be quite honest. I need to see how he adjusts to guys that are defensive-minded that way. Because let's be honest, he doesn't really have those guys on his resume. There's no one like Rigo in Inoue's resume. I can 100% say there's people like Inoue in Rigo's resume.
Right. And Chucky Flores was a puncher too, and he got rid of him. Well, I guess that got reversed to a no contest, but like
that was he knocked him out.
I agree. That was a knockout. I mean, I know what a knockout is. It's like in football when they say that's not a catch. Like that's a catch. Like I know that was a knockout. He threw a bomb, and it simultaneously, as the bell sounded, he hit him. That's a knockout. It's a knockout.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. Hold on, quickly. Okay, let's get about the knockout ratio. Rigo had like a 60% knockout ratio, 59.9% knockout ratio,
which is good for a master boxer, right? Because it's like he doesn't have to knock people up, but he's got the power to do it, right? So, I mean, he can sit there and just outbox people for 12 rounds and win every round, like he did in the last 11 rounds against Solis, who's a good fighter, right?
And since Loma, he's 3-0 with 2 knockouts. Like Giovanni Delgado is not even a bad name as well. I mean, it's not good. He's not bad either.
It's one of those guys who fights everyone.
Has a lot of losses.
I think Figueroa beat him, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think that's who he fought before.
Yeah.
I forget when he fought him. But digressing. Gary, that's going to be it for today's show. I know we put like news in the thumbnail, but there isn't really that much news. There's that Josh Warrington, Shakur Stevenson article that's getting the rounds a little bit, but we knew that fight wasn't happening. in May if Shakur Stevenson's fighting in March. Really, we kind of knew that wasn't going to be the case. So not a thing to report. I feel like. Also, there was something else that happened that I thought was really. Oh, the Gilberto Ramirez like meeting with Eddie Hearn and wanting a huge deal for the Dimitri Bivol fight. We reported that already. That's something I feel like already touched on.
Eddie should give him $20 million. He'll sign if you give him $20 million.
Gary, don't you know that Len Blavnik is worth $19 billion? Okay.
If we have 20 billion, what's 20 million, right?
And Heyman, is he worth billions? No. So, okay. DAZN is amazing. PBC sucks, bro.
Is he really worth 19 billion?
I want to say so, yeah.
That is so much money.
Hey, when you come into a empire that's crumbling and buy up all the steel corporations, it kind of helps, man. Kind of helps, you know. If those don't know what I'm talking about, this like research oligarchs and corporations coming into the Soviet Union in the early 90s and buying up corporations that were then sold from the government. Wild stories, by the way. Wild scenarios there. Len Blavnik is 100% connected to the Russian mob. Just saying. Guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff on YouTube. Listen on podcast form. Drop that 5-star review on iTunes, patreon.com/Mixed Combat Radio. I am Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Find me, Matt Hunter, MCR, on all social media platforms. It's right there below on the screen, right there. Gary, you go.
Find me on all forms of social media at 3D Boxing Blog, 3D Boxing. It was a good show and a great week of boxing. From Texas to the world. Thank you. God bless.
Peace.